The rain hammered against my study window as I reached for the filing cabinet. My hand froze mid-motion. The lock was scratched. Fresh scratches, the kind a screwdriver leaves when someone who doesn't know what they're doing tries to force entry. I crouched down, my knees protesting after 32 years with the RCMP. The scratches were recent. Within days, maybe hours. I straightened slowly, scanning my study. Nothing dramatic, no overturned furniture. But after 4 decades in this house, on Vancouver Island, I knew every detail. The property deed folder sat 3 inches left of where I'd placed it. My retirement papers were shuffled. Someone had gone through these documents methodically, trying to replace them close enough. My heart rate stayed steady. Training kicked in. I pulled out my phone and photographed the scratches, the misplaced folders, everything that screamed violation. 32 years investigating crime scenes had taught me one thing. Document first, react later. That evening at dinner, Marcus cleared his throat. The sound cut through the silence like a warning bell. Dad, I've been thinking. Have you considered updating your will? Making sure everything's organized properly? I set down my fork with deliberate care. Looked at my son across the table. Really looked at him. His eyes darted to Vanessa, then back to me. Too quick. Why do you ask? Just smart planning. At your age, it's important to have things clear. At my age, I let the words hang there. Vanessa leaned forward, her smile warm but calculated. Robert, we only want what's best. Having proper documentation protects everyone, prevents confusion later. Confusion about what, exactly? Oh, you know. She waved her hand vaguely. Legal matters. Marcus worries about you living alone in this big house. I picked up my water glass, giving myself time to study them both. Vanessa's left hand gripped her napkin too tightly. Marcus couldn't hold my gaze for more than 3 seconds. After 3 decades reading body language in interrogation rooms, I knew guilt when I saw it. The rest of the meal crawled past. I pretended to watch the news afterward while studying their reflections in the window. They sat close on the couch, heads together, voices low. Vanessa touched Marcus's arm. He nodded, glanced toward me, looked away when he thought I'd notice. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain. My son, the boy I'd raised alone after Sarah died, the kid I'd taught to fish in Cowichan Lake, put through UBC, stood beside at his graduation. Now, sitting in my living room, plotting what? To have me declared incompetent? To take the lakefront property worth nearly $2 million in today's market? I was up before dawn. The mail sat by the front door. 2 envelopes had been opened and crudely resealed. I checked Canada Post tracking on my phone. 3 letters marked delivered hadn't made it to my pile. Missing. Someone was intercepting my mail. I photographed everything. Then I stood in my study and let myself feel it. The rage, the betrayal, the absolute gut-wrenching pain of discovering your own child wants to steal from you. I gave myself 60 seconds. Then I locked it away. Time to investigate. 2 days of planning. 2 days of playing the oblivious retiree while making careful preparations. On the 3rd morning, I made my announcement at breakfast. I'm going camping. 2 weeks. Up island, around Tofino. Need some time to clear my head. Marcus's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Today? That's sudden. I'm retired. No better time. I spread a map across the table. Going to take the truck up Highway 4. Camp at a few spots. Your mother always wanted to do this trip. Figure I'll finally do it for her. The emotion in that last sentence was calculated. True enough to be believable, strategic enough to deflect suspicion. Vanessa recovered quickly. That sounds wonderful, Robert. Don't worry about anything here. We'll take care of the house. Don't worry about anything here. The words landed like a confession. I loaded the truck that afternoon. Camping gear, cooler, tent I wouldn't use, but buried beneath the legitimate supplies. High-grade surveillance equipment I'd requisitioned from my former colleagues, night vision binoculars, audio recording devices, my old case notebook. As I backed out of the driveway, I watched them in the rearview mirror. The moment they thought I couldn't see, their faces changed. Marcus's arm went around Vanessa's waist. They were celebrating. I drove 30 kilometers east, not west. The Bayshore Inn sat off the highway, the kind of place that took cash and asked no questions. I checked in under a former undercover alias, paid for 2 weeks, and settled in to wait. At dusk, I drove back. Different route. Side roads I knew from decades of patrolling this area. I parked 4 blocks away and walked through the misty evening. The vacant house across from mine had been for sale for 8 months. I'd noted the lockbox code weeks ago during my morning walks, force of habit from years of investigation. My fingers found the buttons in the darkness. The box clicked open. Inside smelled of abandonment. I moved through without lights, found the front bedroom with its clear view of my house. Every window across the street blazed, both cars in the driveway. I set up my surveillance position, unfolded the chair, raised the binoculars, adjusted the focus. Through my living room window, I could see Marcus pacing, Vanessa on her phone, animated conversation. She was coordinating something. The transformation was complete. I was no longer the target. I was the investigator. And they had no idea I was watching. 3 nights of surveillance revealed patterns. Marcus left every morning at 8:30 for his downtown office. Vanessa went shopping on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Victoria Inner Harbor, usually gone 2 hours minimum. But it was the visitors that told the real story. On the 4th night, a silver Lexus pulled into my driveway at 9:40. A man emerged. 50s, business suit, leather briefcase. He knocked once. Marcus let him in immediately. I photographed the license plate, ran it through a contact at ICBC, registered to Coastal Properties Realty. The visitor was Derek Chen, commercial real estate agent. They met in my dining room. I watched through the window as Vanessa spread documents across my table. Red folder. I recognized it instantly from my violated filing cabinet. My property deed. My will. Financial statements. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. I documented everything. When Chen left, they shook hands on my front porch. His voice carried in the still night. If the power of attorney is legitimate, we can close by September 15th. Buyers offering $1.8 million. Power of attorney. The words hit like physical blows. Marcus's response made it worse. It's legitimate. My father signed it months ago. He's been getting confused lately. The lie. The absolute, complete lie. I'd signed nothing. Authorized nothing. I lowered the binoculars. My hands didn't shake. They were steady as stone. This wasn't just opportunistic theft. This was calculated fraud. Back at the motel, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to those words. He's been getting confused lately. They were building their defense before the crime was even complete, setting up the narrative that I was incompetent, unreliable, easily manipulated. The next morning, I made a decision. Time to stop watching and start building. I drove to Victoria, to the office of Dr. Patricia Wong. She'd been my physician for 20 years since Sarah's cancer diagnosis. If anyone knew my mental state, it was Patricia. She looked up from her desk when I walked in. "Robert, I thought you were camping up island." Change of plans. I sat down. "Patricia, I need to ask you something. Have you received any requests for my medical records recently?" Her expression shifted. "How did you know? Who requested them?" "Your son. About 10 days ago. Said you'd authorized it for insurance purposes." She pulled a file. "I didn't release anything without your written consent. The request seemed odd, so I called your house. Got Vanessa. She said you were napping, that you'd been very forgetful lately." My jaw clenched. "Patricia, I need you to document something officially. I am not experiencing any cognitive decline. I want that on record, dated today, with neurological assessment if necessary." "Robert, what's going on?" I told her. Not everything, but enough. The break-in, the mail interception, the power of attorney I'd never signed. Her face darkened with each detail. "Elder financial abuse?" she said quietly. "I've seen it before. More often than people realize. I need documentation that I'm competent. Ironclad documentation. You'll have it by this afternoon." She paused. "Robert, this is your son. Are you certain?" "I spent 32 years investigating crimes. I'm certain. The assessment took 3 hours. Cognitive function tests, memory evaluation, mental status examination. Patricia was thorough. By 5 o'clock, I had a notarized medical report confirming full mental competency. That evening, I returned to my surveillance post. But this time, I wasn't just watching. I was building a case. The evidence folders were accumulating. Medical documentation, photographs of the midnight meeting, audio recordings of Marcus lying about my confusion. On the 7th night, something changed. I heard footsteps on the porch of the vacant house. My hand moved toward my phone, ready to explain my presence. The door opened. "Doctor." Patricia Wong stood there, holding a thermos and a canvas bag. "I've been thinking about what you told me," she said, stepping inside. "This isn't just your family anymore. This is a crime. And I'm a witness to their attempt to obtain your medical records fraudulently." "Patricia, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She set down the bag, pulled out a notebook. "I've been documenting everything. Dates, times, conversations, including Vanessa's claims about your forgetfulness. Claims that contradict every interaction I've had with you." Something in my chest loosened. For 7 days I'd been alone with this. Now I had an ally. "Why?" I asked quietly. Her expression hardened. "Because my mother went through this. Her second husband and his daughter. They tried to have her declared incompetent, steal her house. I was too young to stop it, didn't understand what was happening until it was too late." She looked at me directly. "I won't watch it happen again." We settled in together. Two people watching a crime unfold, documenting every detail. At 11:30, Patricia touched my arm. "Look." A black Range Rover was pulling into my driveway. A woman emerged, late 30s, business attire, carrying a laptop case. She knocked. Vanessa answered immediately. "Who's that?" Patricia whispered. I zoomed in with the binoculars, captured photos. "Don't know, but I'm going to find out." The meeting lasted until 1 in the morning. When the woman left, I photographed her license plate, ran it through contacts, registered to Jennifer Hartley, estate planning consultant. But it was the next morning that changed everything. I needed more than surveillance. I needed the documents themselves. Thursday morning, Marcus left at 8:27. Vanessa's SUV pulled out 45 minutes later, headed toward Victoria. I gave it 15 minutes, then drove to my own house. Parked in the driveway like I belonged because I did and used my key. Inside felt wrong. The air smelled different. Vanessa's expensive perfume everywhere. I moved through quickly, checking rooms. The guest room had been converted to Marcus's temporary office. I opened the door. The desk held typical work debris. But the bottom drawer, there it was, the red folder. I spread the contents across the desk. Power of attorney document dated July 2nd. My signature at the bottom. Except it wasn't my signature. Close. Very close. But the pressure points were wrong, and most damning, the ink appeared newer than the paper. I photographed every page from multiple angles. Then I saw the other documents. Preliminary sale agreement. Buyer, Richard Morrison from Calgary. Closing date, September 15th. Purchase price, $1.8 million. My hands trembled as I kept photographing. Then I found the printed emails. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. They were between Vanessa and someone named Trevor in Ontario. Planning, detailed, brutal planning. Once the sale closes, I'll have my $900,000. Enough to start fresh with you in Toronto. Marcus thinks we're buying a condo here together. He has no idea I'm leaving. I stood there, phone forgotten in my hand, reading the full scope of betrayal. Marcus thought they were building a future together. He had no idea Vanessa was using him as a tool, planning to abandon him the moment the money transferred. Marcus keeps asking about wedding dates. I told him after we settled the property sale. By then I'll be gone and he'll be holding the bag for the fraud. My son was being used, manipulated, set up to take the fall for crimes she'd orchestrated. The next email was worse. This is exactly how it worked with David's family in Montreal. Forged POA. Claim parent is confused. Sell property. Disappear before investigation. I got $400,000 from that one. This is bigger. The lakefront location makes it worth the risk. She'd done this before, successfully. To another family. I photographed every email, every damning word. Then I found the document that made my blood run cold. Commitment papers for a psychiatric facility. Forms to have me involuntarily admitted for increasingly erratic behavior and paranoid delusions. Not filled out yet, but prepared. Ready to use if I fought back. They weren't just stealing my property. They had a contingency plan to institutionalize me if I resisted. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. Left through the back door. Made it to my truck 2 blocks away before I let myself react. I sat there shaking. Not from fear, from rage. From the realization of just how completely they'd planned my destruction. Marcus was a fool, manipulated by someone who'd done this before. But he was still complicit, still willing to betray his father for money. Back at the motel, I laid out everything. Photographs of forged documents, emails proving premeditation, Vanessa's history of elder fraud, the prepared commitment papers. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. This was organized crime, pattern crime. And I had a former career's worth of contacts who'd want to know about it. I called Patricia. I need you to do something. Contact Elder Abuse Response at Vancouver Island Health Authority. Tell them you have a patient whose family is attempting guardianship fraud. Don't mention my name yet. Just start the paper trail. Already done, she said. I filed a report yesterday. Protocol requires me to when I suspect abuse. Patricia, you're not alone in this, Robert. We're building a case together. The next phase required precision. I called James Chen, a state lawyer I'd worked with on dozens of cases over the years. Explained the situation in clinical detail. You need a trust, he said immediately. Irrevocable. Dated before their forged power of attorney. Makes their document worthless. Can't sell property you don't control. How fast can you do this? I can backdate establishment to June 15th if you'll swear an affidavit that you'd been planning this prior. 30 days before their July forgery. Do it. By that evening, my lakefront property existed in an irrevocable living trust with me as sole trustee. The forged power of attorney, dated July 2nd, was legally meaningless. I also visited my bank, spoke with the branch manager, placed a formal hold on any real estate transactions involving my property. No transfers without me physically present, photo ID verified, verbal confirmation recorded. The legal fortress was in place. Now I needed one more thing. Public exposure. I called my former supervisor at RCMP, Inspector Sarah Mitchell, explained everything, sent her the documentation. Jesus, Robert, your own son. There's more. The girlfriend has a pattern. Montreal family, 2 years ago. I found emails referencing it. I'll reach out to Quebec. If there's a case there, this becomes interprovincial fraud. Bigger charges. Sarah, I want to wait until closing day. Let them think they're succeeding. Maximum evidence, maximum exposure. She was quiet for a moment. That's cold. That's justice. I returned home on September 8th, 1 week before the scheduled closing, pulled into the driveway at 2 in the afternoon, watched the front curtain twitch. They'd seen me arrive. I grabbed my duffel bag, walked to the door like any tired camper returning home, fumbled with the keys, calculated clumsiness. I'm back. Camping didn't work out. Marcus appeared from the kitchen, face drained of color before muscle memory forced a smile. Dad, you're home early. Everything okay? Altitude got to me. Headaches. Figured I'd be more comfortable here. Vanessa descended the stairs. That's too bad, Robert, but probably smart to come home. We were getting worried. I let uncertainty show on my face, played the role they expected. Good to be back. Missed my own bed. They exchanged a glance. Relief mixed with recalculation. I had returned 7 days early. Not what they'd planned. But the closing was still scheduled. They still thought they had time. Over the next 5 days, I performed perfectly. Confused. Forgetful. Asked Vanessa to repeat simple things. Paused before answering basic questions. Let them see exactly what they wanted to see. An old man losing his grip, unable to challenge them. But every conversation was recorded. Every false claim of my confusion documented. Every time they tried to manufacture evidence of incompetence, I captured it. On September 12th, Vanessa sprang the real trap. Robert, remember those papers from July? Legal documents. You signed them for Marcus to help with property management. I furrowed my brow, appearing to strain for memory. Papers? What papers? Power of attorney forms. You signed them so Marcus could handle financial matters if needed. My confusion was genuine. I'd never signed anything. But to them, my blank expression read as memory loss. Perfect. Did I sign something? I can't remember. It's all fuzzy. The triumph that flashed across Vanessa's face was barely concealed. Marcus relaxed visibly. They believed they'd successfully established reasonable doubt about my mental state. That night, I passed their bedroom door and heard their voices through the gap. He doesn't even remember signing. Marcus's voice, low and relieved. Perfect. If he challenges anything, we cite cognitive decline. Vanessa's voice. You're sure the documents will pass scrutiny? I've done this before, Marcus. Trust me. 3 more days and we're clear. I stood in the darkened hallway, phone recording every word. They had no idea I was there. No idea every lie was being captured. Back in my study, I connected the phone to my laptop, saved the audio files with timestamps, sent encrypted copies to Patricia, to James Chen, to Inspector Mitchell. The trap was set. Now I just needed to spring it. September 15th arrived. I dressed in my formal RCMP interview suit, the one I'd worn to court testimony for 3 decades. Navy blue, perfect Windsor knot, shoes polished to mirror shine. Picked up my leather briefcase, the one I'd carried my entire career. Inside, organized evidence folders, each labeled, each containing documentation that would destroy them. I walked into the kitchen where they sat over coffee, running some errands. Be back later. They smiled, relieved. Probably thought I was going to the pharmacy or grocery store, harmless old man activities. In 4 hours, they'd be at Pacific Coast Escrow, expecting to sign away my home and collect $1.8 million. Instead, they'd face consequences they'd never anticipated. I drove toward Victoria with the calm focus of someone about to present an unbeatable case. No anxiety, no doubt. Just certainty that comes from 3 decades of investigation and evidence so solid it could withstand any challenge. Pacific Coast Escrow occupied the 3rd floor of a downtown office building. Through the glass conference room walls, I could see them gathered. Derek Chen at the head of the table, organizing documents. Marcus and Vanessa on the left side, dressed professionally, nervous energy barely contained. Richard Morrison, the Calgary buyer, on the right side. Jennifer Hartley, the estate consultant, beside him. Sarah Lambert, the escrow officer, arranging paperwork. Everything proceeding normally. Just another real estate closing. I checked my watch. 2 o'clock exactly. James Chen stood beside me in the hallway, his own briefcase in hand. Patricia Wong waited a few steps behind, her medical records folder visible. Ready? James asked. I've been ready for 2 months. I opened the conference room door. All conversation died instantly. Marcus's face drained of color. Vanessa half rose from her chair before catching herself. Chen looked confused. Morrison looked annoyed. Lambert looked concerned. I walked to the empty end of the table. James behind me, Patricia by the door. I didn't remove my jacket, set my briefcase down with a decisive click. Good afternoon. I'm Robert Sullivan, actual owner of the property you're attempting to purchase. Robert? Vanessa stood. What are you doing here? I ignored her, addressed Lambert directly. This transaction cannot proceed. The power of attorney you're relying on is forged, and the property is held in an irrevocable trust that predates their fraudulent document. Dad, this isn't Marcus started. Be quiet, Marcus. I opened my briefcase, removed the first folder. Red tab, walked around the table, placed it in front of Lambert. My sworn affidavit that I never executed any power of attorney. Never authorized anyone to conduct transactions involving my property. She opened it, began reading. I returned to my briefcase. Here's Dr. Patricia Wong's medical assessment, conducted September 3rd, confirming full cognitive capacity. Notarized, comprehensive, including neurological evaluation. Patricia stepped forward, handed her folder to Lambert. I'm Dr. Wong. I can testify that Mr. Sullivan shows zero signs of cognitive impairment. I can also testify that his son attempted to obtain his medical records fraudulently in August, making false claims about his father's mental state. Lambert examined the documents, checking dates, reviewing details. I removed the second folder. Blue tab. Mr. Sullivan's property was transferred into an irrevocable living trust on June 15th, 1 month before the alleged power of attorney date. James took this one, handed it to Lambert. I'm James Chen, Mr. Sullivan's attorney. As sole trustee, Mr. Sullivan is the only person authorized to conduct transactions involving this property. Here's the BC land title registration. Lambert studied the trust documents, her expression hardening. She looked up at Derek Chen. Did you verify trust status before proceeding? Chen's face reddened. The power of attorney appeared legitimate. Standard due diligence includes title searches, revealing trusts, James interrupted. Morrison stood abruptly. You told me this was a clean transaction. I pulled out my phone. Let me clarify exactly how clean this is. I tapped the screen. Vanessa's voice filled the room. If he challenges anything, we cite cognitive decline. Marcus's voice. 3 more days and we're clear. Vanessa again. I've done this before, Marcus, trust me. I stopped playback. The silence was absolute. That's from September 12th. Recorded in my own home. Does that sound like people who genuinely believed I'd signed documents? I removed the third folder, black tab, opened it so everyone could see. Surveillance photographs from August 20th. Midnight meeting between Marcus, Vanessa, and Mr. Chen at my residence. My private documents spread across my dining table. Documents taken from my broken filing cabinet. I swiped through photos on my phone, displaying them for the room. Each image time-stamped, undeniable. Morrison leaned forward, studied the photos, then turned to Chen with disgust. This is fraud. I'm calling my lawyer. I was provided falsified, Chen started. You met at midnight to discuss documents you knew were questionable. I interrupted. You're complicit. I removed the fourth folder. Green tab. Comparative signature analysis. My genuine signature versus the forgery. Note the pressure differences, the formation inconsistencies, the ink age discrepancy. Lambert closed her folder with finality. This closing cannot proceed. I'm required to report suspected fraud to authorities. Morrison was already gathering his things. Chen, you assured me the documentation was verified. My lawyer will be contacting you about your negligence and fraud. But I wasn't done. I removed the final folder. Orange tab, the one I'd saved for last. Here are emails between Vanessa and her accomplice in Ontario, planning this fraud, discussing how to split the proceeds, referencing a previous successful fraud against a Montreal family in 2023. Marcus turned to Vanessa, confusion and horror dawning on his face. What's he talking about? I read from the printout. Quote, Marcus thinks we're buying a condo here together. He has no idea I'm leaving. Once I have my $900,000, I'm gone to Toronto with Trevor. This is exactly how it worked with David's family in Montreal. The color drained from Marcus's face. He looked at Vanessa. You're leaving me? She said nothing. Her expression had gone cold, calculating. Marcus, I said quietly, she was using you. You were her tool. She's done this before, successfully. You were never her partner. You were her patsy. He stood up, backing away from the table. Vanessa? Marcus. Don't listen to. Were you planning to leave me? His voice cracked. I looked at my son, saw the moment he understood he'd been betrayed twice. Once by his own greed, once by the woman he'd trusted. Mr. Sullivan. Inspector Sarah Mitchell walked through the door, 2 constables behind her. She must have been waiting in the hallway. We received your documentation package. Miss Vanessa Hartley, you're under arrest for fraud over $5,000, uttering forged documents and elder abuse. We're also coordinating with Quebec on charges related to a 2023 fraud case. Vanessa's face went rigid. I want a lawyer. Marcus Sullivan, you're also under arrest as an accomplice to fraud and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Dad Marcus turned to me, pleading. I looked at my son. The boy I'd raised alone. The man who'd chosen to steal from me. And I felt nothing but cold certainty. You made your choice, Marcus. You broke into my safe, forged my signature, tried to steal my home while I slept under its roof. That I'm your father doesn't excuse it. It makes it worse. I'm sorry. No, you're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. The constables handcuffed them both. Reed writes, led them out. Marcus looked back once. I didn't turn away. Let him see my face. Let him understand this wasn't anger. This was justice. When the room emptied, I stood alone with James, Patricia, and Lambert. Mr. Sullivan, Lambert said quietly, I'm sorry this happened to you. Don't be sorry. Just make sure your report is thorough. There are other families out there Vanessa's targeted. This needs to be on record. I gathered my folders, returned them to my briefcase with the same precision I'd used to remove them, looked at Patricia and James. Thank you, both of you. I couldn't have done this alone. Patricia touched my shoulder briefly. You're not alone in this, Robert. You never were. We walked out together, down the elevator, into the September sunshine. Victoria's inner harbor sparkled in the afternoon light. Tourists walked the boardwalk. Life continued as normal. But nothing would ever be normal again. Over the following weeks, the case moved forward. Marcus pleaded guilty, took a deal. 2 years probation, community service, $20,000 in fines. His law license suspended pending review. Vanessa fought the charges, hired expensive lawyers. But the Quebec case was solid. David Morrison's family had documentation similar to mine. Pattern crime. She went to trial in November. I attended every day. Sat in the gallery watching evidence presented. Surveillance photos, forged documents, emails planning fraud. Patricia testified about the fraudulent medical records request. Inspector Mitchell outlined the pattern between both cases. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. 3 years in federal prison. 5-year prohibition on estate planning activities after release. Marcus sent a letter in December, handwritten. 6 pages of apology, explanation, justification. He'd been manipulated by Vanessa. Didn't understand what he was doing. Made terrible choices out of desperation. I read it once, then filed it away without responding. In January, I received notice Marcus wanted to visit. Supervised meeting at a restorative justice center. He wanted to apologize in person, make amends, rebuild our relationship. I declined. Some betrayals are unforgivable, not because the person can't change, but because the trust, once shattered, can't be reconstructed. Marcus hadn't just stolen from me. He'd looked me in the eye for months, knowing what he was planning, and lied with every word. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Now, as I sit in my study on a February morning, looking out at the lake, I think about Patricia's question from months ago. Was it worth it? Prosecuting your own son? The house is quiet. Mine alone now. Safe. Defended. Worth nearly $2 million. But that was never really the point. The point was dignity. Self-respect. The refusal to be a victim. I lost my son in this. That hurts. It will always hurt. But I kept something more important. Myself. My agency. My right to control my own life and property. Justice isn't always kind. It doesn't preserve relationships or keep families intact. But it's always right. And sometimes, that has to be enough. The rain has started again. Typical February weather on the island. I pour another coffee, open my laptop. There's an email from Elder Abuse Response. They want me to speak at a workshop for seniors about asset protection. Share my story, offer guidance. I type my response. Yes, I'll speak. If my experience can help even one person avoid this, it's worth telling. Transforming pain into purpose, turning betrayal into protection for others. That's the real victory. The house is quiet, but it's mine. Safe, defended, home. And that, after everything, is what matters.